Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to this evening's episode of Fracking Nightmare. Now, this is going to be the last live programme until the end of August, as everybody in Plymouth disappears for their summer vacations. Well, inevitably, of course, everything's going to break loose over the next 2 weeks. We're still waiting for the 14th round adjudication announcements, and no doubt the Department of Energy and Climate Change will wait until probably about 4:30 on a Friday afternoon to make those announcements, in the hope that the media will have forgotten about them by the following Monday. Well, tonight's programme probably should be renamed, because it's no longer just the fracking nightmare, it's a democracy nightmare, because it's becoming very clear that everything that people perceive as British democracy is being ripped apart by the Tory government. Of course, since the decision by the Development Committee of Lancashire County Council at the end of June to reject Quadrilla's application to establish 2 frack sites on the Fylde Peninsula, just outside Blackpool, then the government has gone into overdrive to demonise local authorities, to effectively accuse them of being NIMBYs, of ignoring professional counsel, and stating that they have every intention of doing everything they possibly can to remove the decision-making from local authorities. So last week I made mention of the fact that we are getting increasing reports from around the country that parish councillors are being told by their respective town clerks that they will be personally liable for any costs in the event of the council being sued by the companies because they object to their applications. Now, this is patently untrue, and our advice to any councillors that find themselves in that situation is to demand that advice in writing. And in all probability, it won't be forthcoming. Well, it's becoming increasingly evident that the councils, and they're receiving their instructions from central government, and the update on the Freedom of Information request to establish precisely the role of Amanda Webster, if indeed it is her, I believe it is, but precisely the role of Amanda Webster at the Lancashire County Council hearings, because she had the ear of Stuart Perigo, and there she is in the centre picture there, in one of the many forays that she made to get his ear during the course of the proceedings. The response was due from Lancashire County Council on July 31st. It wasn't forthcoming, so I immediately initiated a request for a review, an internal review, so that Lancashire County Council have established why it is that this response isn't forthcoming. This is what they sent to me. Dear Mr. Crane, thank you for your email. Please accept my apologies for the delay that has been incurred thus far. I can assure you that this is purely due to the workload we are currently experiencing, and in particular, the number of requests we have received recently in respect of hydraulic fracturing and associated matters. I hope to be in a position to issue our response in the next few days, and apologise once again for the delay and any inconvenience caused as a result. Now, I received that on the 5th of August, so that's last Wednesday. I phoned the Information Governance Officer at Lancashire County Council earlier today and received the anticipated fob off. Well, we'll keep the pressure on, but I'm looking forward to finding out precisely why Amanda Webster had the ear of Stuart Perigo. Now, you will recall that we also had the appeal, because Stuart Perigo effectively railroaded the decision for the Planning Committee to agree to Quadrilla's application for establishing 3 monitoring wells and 88 seismic arrays, despite having rejected the application to drill and frack at Rosica. So the Frack Free Lancashire are now establishing a request for a judicial review. In fact, the papers have been submitted, along with the required £1,000 deposit. And actually the target or the campaign has been extended to mid-September now. And at the last time of looking earlier this evening, I think it was close on about £6,500. So that is a tremendous move forward. And so hopefully, people will continue to donate or contribute to this appeal. And if you just search for Lancashire County Council Fracking Crowdfunder, then you'll find the appeal page there. So as I said, we're very much waiting on the 14th round announcements. And I went through this last week showing the areas that are being targeted. There we go. Those are the primary areas that I think are going to be targeted in the 14th round. But nonetheless, it does mean that the area that is licensed is going to be almost doubled between now and year end. Now, this evening, we're actually going to focus on the issue of contamination. And this is particularly pertinent because this has been the scene in supermarkets right across Western Lancashire since Thursday of last week. And this was due to United Utilities, the water authority in the area, announcing that there was a contamination of the water supply. A bacteria had been discovered. And basically the warning was issued to something like 300,000 people. Now, of course, this has nothing to do with fracking. This is not related in any way, shape or form to Quadrilla's previous foray onto the field. But more the point here is to illustrate the magnitude of the impact with, in this case, a relatively minor contamination of the water supply. Now, this particular bacteria has a tendency to cause rather severe diarrhea. So the health warning was issued on Thursday. It was still in place earlier today. And United Utilities have pledged to look at paying compensation to residents after traces of the bug Cryptosporidium, a microscopic parasite which can cause stomach cramps and diarrhea, was found at Franklaw Water Treatment Plant in Catterall near Garstang. Now, just to put in perspective, this is the area of northwest England that is impacted here. So this is something that, now they've identified it, hopefully will be relatively easy to resolve, either by increasing the chlorine content or by subjecting the water to UV, ultraviolet. Either way, the warning is still in place. So please, if you're in this area of the country, do make sure that you boil your water. Even after United Utilities declare it safe, I think it still would be advisable to boil your water. Elsewhere, let's cross the Atlantic and go to southwest Colorado. And here, the Animas River in southwestern Colorado has been contaminated with some 3 million gallons of wastewater. Now, that's a conservative estimate. In fact, the Environmental Protection Agency has tripled its estimates for heavy metals contaminating from the old gold mines, the old Gold King mine near Silverton, after a botched operation allowed a surge of wastewater to breach the Animas River on Wednesday. Now, interestingly, this contamination was actually caused by the Environment Protection Agency, who were responsible for this cleanup operation. Now, this contamination is heading down, I believe, down towards Lake Powell. So once again, a very, very significant area of the Four Corners area. I think it's down in southwest Colorado. The river flows through New Mexico. In fact, treatment plants in Farmington and Aztec, New Mexico have been shut down. And it's heading towards Utah. But it just goes to show how industrialization of an area is effectively a time bomb. So another area, and literally this is hot off the press today. In Australia, we've discussed on a much earlier episode of Fracking Nightmare the risks associated with underground coal gasification. And if I just go back to this particular map of the UK for a second, what you see here is all of these red asterisks around the coast are the areas that are being targeted for underground coal gasification. Now, this I have always referred to as fracking's ugly sister, because if you think fracking is bad, if you think the exploitation of shale gas and coal bed methane is bad, then underground coal gasification is literally the worst nightmare. Now, earlier today, a report was, I won't say released, because I'm not sure effectively how it came into the hands of ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Company. But here was the headline that appeared early this morning, UK time. Link Energy, secret report reveals toxic legacy of coal gasification trials near southeast Queensland, the town of Chinchilla. Now, the Chinchilla will be familiar with regular viewers because that's the closest main town to where I was staying last year, where I filmed much of Voices from the gas fields with the Monk and the Jenkins families. So here it says hundreds of square kilometres of prime agricultural land, much of it classified as organic, in southeast Queensland are to be at risk from a cocktail of toxic chemicals and explosive gases, according to a secret state government report. A study commissioned by Queensland's Environment Department says an experimental plant operated by mining company Link Energy at Chinchilla, to the west of Brisbane, is to blame and has already caused irreversible damage to strategic cropping land. Now, much of this land was classified as prime agricultural land. I don't think that that's going to be the case for much longer. The department, which has launched a $6.5 million, that's Australian dollars, criminal prosecution of the company, alleges Link is responsible for gross interference to the health and well-being of former workers at the plant, as well as serious environmental harm. It says gases released by Link's activities at its underground coal gasification plant at Hopeland have caused the permanent acidification of the soil near the site. Experts also found concentrations of hydrogen in the soil at explosive levels and abnormal amounts of methane, which they say is being artificially generated underground over a very wide area. To put that in perspective, this is the area here, part of the Western Darling Downs. It's part of the wheat, barley and cotton area and cattle grazing with a number of organic producers. Now, I'm going to show a short video that was sent over to me from Australia literally just a few hours ago. And considering that the British government is still intent on ignoring the due process, ignoring the councils that do not want this process, any unconventional gas exploitation in their area, yet the government is doing everything it can to foist it upon us. Well, I've already labelled many of those at the heart of government as sociopaths or demonstrating sociopathic behaviours, but take a look at this video and then decide for yourself whether this is something that would be appropriate for the small, densely populated island known as the UK.
730 has obtained damning new information about what could end up as one of Australia's biggest environmental contaminations. It's in Queensland. Severe toxic damage to groundwater, soil and air has put at risk hundreds of square kilometres of prime agricultural land west of Brisbane. An investigation by the Queensland government has found a massive environmental time bomb on land mined by a company called Link Energy. It's so serious that criminal charges have been levelled against the company, with the state warning that if Link Energy is found guilty, executives could face the prospect of jail. The damage has been going on for years. Reporter Mark Willacy has this exclusive report from Hopeland on the Western Darling Downs.
Brian Bender's forebears first tilled the fertile soil of Hopeland in 1874. 140 years on, Brian and his father George proudly grow wheat and barley and raise pigs. Today they're burying a couple of sows that have died, but it's no longer a routine task.
That's 1.5 there, that'll do. We can't go any more than 10 metres, so we might as well just stop there. That'll do.
There's a persuasive reason why the benders can't dig any deeper than 2 metres. It's the risk of explosion. A dangerous cocktail of gases lies just under the ground. A legacy, the Queensland Environment Department says, of Link Energy's underground coal gasification project.
Always had that in the back of my head that the Link Energy site was going to be a environmental disaster.
Above ground, this looks like it's going to be a bumper crop, but it's what's happening beneath this land that's worrying many people out here. The Queensland Environment Department alleges that toxic gas is leaking through underground pathways, polluting a massive area of subsoil 2 to 6 metres below where I'm standing. For months, more than 100 investigators and workers have been crawling over farms and properties at Hopeland. They've uncovered dangerous levels of carbon monoxide and hydrogen sulfide, as well as hydrogen and methane at explosive levels.
We've put in place what we've called a caution zone of approximately 320 square kilometres outside of the Link site itself, and that is where we've uncovered concentrations of varying concentrations of these gases.
That's the size of a small country.
Well, it's a large area, yes, indeed.
The Link Energy project was always controversial. Pioneered by the Soviet Union, underground coal gasification, or UCG, has rarely gone further than the trial stage anywhere in the world. Unlike coal seam gas extraction, UCG involves the burning of subterranean coal seams to convert the coal into a synthesis gas or syngas, a mixture consisting primarily of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. The syngas is then brought to the surface for use as fuel, fertilisers or chemical products.
They willfully and knowingly undertook the operation, and they knowingly knew that this could lead to catastrophic events.
The ignition of underground coal seams continued over a 14-year period before Link announced it was decommissioning the trial plant because of a lack of support for UCG from the state government. The government is now prosecuting the company, laying 5 criminal charges of causing serious environmental harm. 730 has obtained a secret report which is the cornerstone of that prosecution, and what it reveals is disturbing. Carcinogens and gases have been found at high enough levels to cause health and safety risks in an area of up to 320 square kilometres around the Link plant. It warns that some of the land surrounding the site can no longer be classified as strategic cropping land because Link's activities have caused irreversible acidification of the soil and released toxic contaminants into water and air as well. This has huge ramifications for farmers out on the plains at Hopeland, particularly for landholders like beef producer Steve Taylor.
It's a huge issue for us as organic producers because if there's any indication of contamination, our life effort is on the line.
Like others out here, Steve Taylor's property has been bored, sampled and tested by investigators. He says there should have been more scrutiny when Link first lit up the underground coal seams.
We know it was ignited. We know there's gas escaping. As to the assurance that it can't meet, I believe is a real unknown and it's a concern.
Well, 730 was invited to visit the Link site and to interview the company's boss, Peter Bond, but just before we arrived, we were told that Mr. Bond was no longer available because he's been stuck overseas. Instead, the company's given us a statement emphatically rejecting all the charges against it, saying the investigation by the department is misguided and lacks scientific evidence. But this isn't just about the contamination of water and land. It also concerns impacts on the health of people. 730 has also obtained witness statements from interviews between former Link workers and the Queensland Environment Department. The men involved do not want to speak on camera because they fear recrimination. So we've used actors to recount their statements.
Yeah, it was not a good place to work. You know, when it had rained, you'd get these bubbles coming up on the surface of the ground over a huge, huge area.
There was a strong smell of coal burning underground. My clothes would stink of it. While I was at work, I would get headaches.
A medical expert engaged by the Environment Department confirmed that the symptoms displayed by these workers were consistent with exposure to toxic syngas.
Yeah, I'd often feel ill on site. You know, headaches and feeling sick in the stomach. The thing is, if you were working at night and there was no breeze, your personal gas detector would be alarming constantly, to the extent that I'd have to get in a vehicle and drive a few kilometres off-site just to stop it alarming.
Well into my time at Link, I started getting chest pains and flu-like symptoms. My doctor asked what chemicals I was being exposed to at work, and soon later I resigned due to my deteriorating health.
Link Energy denies it intentionally exposed workers to gas or covered up health concerns.
If that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will. And I was speaking with Brian Monk earlier today. Unfortunately, he's got some modem problems right now, so he's not able to join us this evening. But he will be joining us in September to give us an update on the situation as it unfolds in southern Queensland and as the magnitude of the devastation and destruction caused by Link becomes apparent. Now, after the break, I'm going to be joined by Paul Hickman, a Shropshire organic farmer that has managed to free himself from the contract that he had with iGas. And Paul has been watching that video for the first time and will be getting his take on that situation. So join me after the break.
Shale gas is part of the future and we will make it happen.
I'm charged with, without lawful authority or excuse, obstructing the highway. Well, I believe I have lawful excuse.
We're going to take very great care that there is no damage to the water supply.
iGas at Barton Moss contaminated the well site. Then Rathline Energy were responsible for considerable property damage as a result of their seismic testing.
There is a fishing lake which started to go down immediately following the detonation of these charges.
I think there's a huge amount of myths that are being put round in order to frighten people.
The first person that signed a well was the person that doomed us to this. An unconventional gas well isn't a pipe out of the ground. With it comes all of the drilling and the destruction. That's a hectare. Plus tracks, compressor stations, water holding ponds.
So we're right in the middle of the Australian bush here. Well, it was once bush.
We take a strip literally 520 kilometres for this one company. We sit on the Great Artesian Basin, one of the greatest water resources in the world, and they are allowed to deplete it and turn it to trash.
There used to be a beautiful green lawn with roses in it. 3 nights of rain, it was dead. Each time it rains, it just comes out black.
You're genuinely so scared of what is happening. It's untrustworthy and it's running out.
This is called a high point vent. That'll have everything in it.
The benzene, the toluene, the ethyl benzenes.
Everything.
When your nose is burning, your eyes are burning, and you got that terrible oily sort of taste, I said, you know, the flares are not, they're just venting. Then other times, it's like little fibres in your throat, you know, the flare is on.
The majority of people that have visited us, they say, how can you live there? You know,
And welcome back to part 2 of Fracking Nightmare. And of course, that was the trailer that you've just watched for Voices from the Gas Fields. Now, it's up on YouTube. Obviously, you get a higher quality version via the DVD. If you acquire a DVD, then you are more than welcome to screen it or to copy it and spread it out there, because with Amber Rudd and Andrea Leadsom determined to subject this country to this abomination. And of course, we saw it in the Sunday Times yesterday, the front page article. Here we go. Tories put fracking on fast track. And then Amber Rudd given an entire column on page 25. Our country needs shale gas, so let's go get it. But of course, as we've discussed before, you won't be getting it anywhere near David Cameron's constituency or Amber Rudd's constituency. They've made very sure about that. So now I'm joined by Paul Hickson. Sorry, I think I said Paul Hickman before. It's Paul Hickson. He's a Shropshire farmer. And I spoke to Paul about 3 weeks ago, just before he was heading off on vacation. And I'm very pleased to welcome you onto Fracking Nightmare tonight, Paul.
Good evening, Ian.
And of course, it's thanks to the good services of your neighbour setting you up on his Skype so that we have this connection.
Yes.
So now, Paul, you are an organic farmer in Shropshire.
That's correct.
And you have just seen that video from Southern Queensland for the first time. And what is your reaction?
Well, I couldn't believe the damage it has caused to the land, because, as you stated, it was organic land. Well, part of it was organic land in Australia, and I'm all organic. And what it would have done to mine would have devastated it, and I wouldn't have been farming.
Well, and unfortunately, there's a lot of farmers in that part of Queensland that are not going to be farming. And, you know, when I was out in Australia last year filming the Monk family and the Jenkins family, of course, they can't even grow grass on their ranches now. And in fact, one of the comments made by one of the contributors to that video, he said that when it rains, the ground bubbles. And that's exactly what Brian Monk told us on an edition of Fracking Nightmare over a year ago, that when it rains on his ranch, the ground bubbles because of the gas percolating through the soils. And yet we don't hear any of this being discussed in this country, do we?
No, none at all. And it was never highlighted, or nothing was ever mentioned to me about fracking when I first signed in.
Well, now talk us through your experience, because I know it's been very traumatic for you, but how long ago was it that you were first approached?
About just over 7 years ago, we were first approached. And when the company first come, they said they were going to do a test plot, which they would come on for 2 to 3 weeks, do the test plot, and leave, and we wouldn't know that they'd been there. And then just over 3 years ago, a company called Dart Energy approached me and said that they'd like to take on the license that from the first company. So and they said similar things to me, so I agreed for them to come on. But then about 12 months after I signed, then it was brought to my attention that the Dart Energy was fracking in Australia and other parts of the world. And when they told me that chemicals were involved, what concerned me, Ian, was that because I'm an organic farmer, that my animals are supplied by spring water that my father found many years ago. And the site where they were going to actually do the test plot or the fracking, they were going to go through one of the springs that my father found. And if they'd have used the chemicals that I was told that they could do, then within hours I got a vet to come, and he said my animals wouldn't be alive the next morning. And that really brought it to my attention what this was going to do to my land and my animals.
So that was that Dart Energy who first told you that they were going to have to use the process known as hydraulic fracturing to extract the gas, or was that iGas?
That was iGas, though.
Okay, so that was iGas after they acquired Dart Energy last year, and of course iGas were in the process of acquiring Dart for close on, I think, five months or so. And iGas are very aggressive. In fact, I mean, they consider themselves to be the major unconventional gas exploitation company in the UK. They have great designs, grand designs. And so at what point did they actually come talk to you about what they were planning to do?
Well, it wasn't them. It was other people that approached me to start with to say what Dart was going to do, and then I have really approached Dart to say, look, this isn't in the license. That it was officially called a license agreement, and nothing was stated about what they were going to do. It was just going to be a test plot, you see, Ian. And then it got to the point that fracking could be involved. Then I approached Dart, and Dart said, no, we're not going to frack, we're not going to use chemicals. And they were quite abrupt with me. They were quite aggressive with me in their attitude. And they came on my land quite a few times without even my permission, which they should have given me at least 10 days prior notice. And I was disgusted with their attitude and their aggression to the neighbours in the area that confronted them as well.
Well, I'm not really surprised to hear that. That's pretty much been the experience of other landowners as well. I mean, this is an industry that works on the basis that it's a lot easier to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. So, and you've obviously had first-hand experience of that. So now iGas came onto the scene. I mean, effectively, the acquisition of Dart Energy was finalised in October of last year. So what contact have you had with iGas since then?
Well, iGas have only approached me twice. Once to say that they are going to pursue it and carry on. But then, you see, my licence agreement came up the 9th of June this year, and there was no way that I was going to even consider signing again for another 3 years. And I didn't tell them that because I was still under an agreement. So I wanted the agreement, Ian, to finish first, and to make sure that my barrister and solicitor had got all the facts right, that I could speak publicly about it after the 9th of June, which I did. And anyway, I was approached several days before I went on vacation, which was only just over 3 weeks ago, only a few days before you contacted me. And they said, Mr. Hickson, we need your plot of land, and we want to come on. Please tell me how much is it going to be for us to come on your land. So it was virtually an open checkbook.
Which is, again, standard industry practice.
Right. Well, I didn't know that but when they said to me that they would give me virtually what I wanted, I said, you can give me what you want. I have no intentions of ever signing anything like this again. And the one thing I would like to say, if there's any landowners out there, please don't ever think about signing an agreement like this because of all the hassle and the frustration that I've had through it. And I've even lost neighbours and some friends through it. It's caused us quite a lot of problems, Ian.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not surprised to hear that because this is very, very divisive in any community. And, we can be fairly accurate in predicting what the split's going to be. It's basically, on average, it's going to be about 80% of the community don't want it. And there'll be 20% of the community that haven't done their research, just listen to what the company has to say and think that it's a great idea. But of course, it does split the community, especially with all of the money that these companies throw at communities. I mean, iGas have a community fund, which they literally use to bribe communities into effectively letting them come in. So they'll, sponsor the local youth football teams, or pay for the rebuilding of, the changing rooms, or a children's play area. And they think that this is enough to effectively buy the acquiescence of the community.
That's what was going to happen in our area, because if they had have come on to my land, they would have donated so much to the local parish hall, the tennis courts, and put quite a bit of money into Shropshire Council as well, I believe. That's what I got told anyway.
Well, you're probably right, but I mean, at what cost to you?
Well, you see, the story went round that I was going to get £100,000 from Dart Energy when I signed with Dart. I didn't get any money, Ian, and all I was going to get, and it's in my licence agreement for anybody to see, that they would have given me up to £4,000 compensation for any damage they'd caused to my land. That's all I was going to get, up to £4,000, no more. And like that £4,000 would have gone nowhere in compensation. To give you an idea, I'm farming nearly 600 acres. My current value of my farm is roughly about £6.5 million. Now, I had the most to lose with this contract, because if they'd have polluted, I wouldn't have just lost the animals, I would have lost the land, it would have been worthless, and I would have lost my organic status, which is very important to us, because it's one thing that this has been built up, not just with myself, but with my father and my grandfather, and we're now the 6th generation of our family that's been on the land, so we would have lost all that. So I had the most to lose out of this.
Well, yeah, I'm just going to pull up here. This is from the local paper here. Shortly after you announced that you weren't going to re-sign the license agreement. And by the way, I have to say you're very, very fortunate, because elsewhere some of the landowners have literally been conned into signing agreements that they're going to struggle to get out of for 50 years. So you are very, very fortunate. In fact, the agreements in East Yorkshire are basically 2 25-year leases, which the gas company there, which is Rathlin Energy, call the shots on. So basically, the license agreement is written in such a way that if Rathlin Energy want to extend it for a further 25 years, after the first 25 years, the landowner doesn't have a say in it. And so you are very, very fortunate that you have had this opportunity to get out after just 3 years. Now, just to come back to that headline, here we go. Stressed Shropshire farmer in gas drilling contract warning. And this was you sharing your insights and your experience, and obviously encouraging other landowners around the country not to be seduced by the gas companies when they made their overtures. Can you just give us some insight as to the stress that this has brought upon you and your family?
Yes, well, there's quite a few things involved. The first thing was the public opinion that my family and I were going to make a lot of money out of it. But I want to stress that the landowner does not get any money, because anything that's below the ground, below a certain level, which is only several feet, belongs to the Crown, which in turn belongs to the government. So any money that's below the ground goes to the public purse, not to the landowner. And people think that the landowner was going to get it. So we had calls, people calling to the farm saying, oh, it's all right for you, you're going to ruin us, but yet you're going to make millions. And we had letters put on windscreens of our vehicles, people knocking on our doors. My mother, who is 80, just finished treatment for cancer, and she had quite a bit of abuse because she lives next door to the farm as well. My son, who lives on the farm now with his wife, who's just had last October had my first grandchild. She came out of, my daughter-in-law came out of hospital on the Wednesday, and on the Thursday there was a big demonstration and out with this Start Energy, and unfortunately my daughter-in-law and my grandchild had a very bad night the first night, called the midwife, and the midwife couldn't get through. So my son and his wife had a lot of problems over this, and people calling was unbelievable, Ian. And I've lost quite a few friends through it. I've made one or two that have been very supportive. But the other thing is that that some of the people in the area thought I was just out for myself, and which was very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, I mean, this is sadly, the normal course of action that the gas company doesn't make it clear to people what the arrangement with the landowner is. They want to keep it very close to their chest, and they're actually very happy to continue, if you like, to allude to the prospect of the belief that the landowner is going to make a small fortune or a very large fortune out of it, because they know it's going to cause division in the community, and they know that actually serves their purpose. Sadly, now I know you've also had obviously this the camp here, and obviously the protection camps have become a feature around the country. This was Dullston Castle, and I think this was in place for about a year, wasn't it?
That's right, just over a year, yes.
And I mean, I know that's now been cleared. I mean, this was the extent of the camp. I think they called it Dullston Castle, but I gather that they have now cleared everything away, and hopefully returned everything to whatever condition it was in before they arrived.
Yes, they have nearly. Yes, they've. It's not quite, but yes, they've done quite a good job of clearing the site, Ian. There is a bit of more tidying up to do, which I will do because it will cost me very little to do it.
So what was your relationship with the camp during that 12 months that it was in place?
Well, it caused a little bit of stress, that did, because some of the people there were against these companies coming in, which was a good thing. But unfortunately, there was other people there that were just going along for the ride, and they caused quite a bit of problems to the cows' welfare. For instance, one early morning at 3 o'clock, my cows were in a certain field, and we didn't realise, but they all walked back to the farm buildings at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is uncommon. They usually come at 5 o'clock when we start milking, and they were blarting and making a noise. We went out to see what was the problem. We couldn't find out what the problem was to start with until it came light, and we went up the field, and the water tanks that the cows drink of had been disconnected, and certain people had put a pipe from the tanks to their camp. And so I was horrified to see what was going on. But thankfully, the people, the real protectors of the environment, escorted certain people away from the camp, and they kept them away, which was a lot better. And it was better for the animal welfare issue point of view. I had a few problems with different people leaving gates open, trespassing where they shouldn't do. But in Maine, the main people that were there most of the time were very good.
Well, I have to say that, my experience of the protection camps, and I've been at Balcombe, Barton Moss, and more recently Crawberry Hill in East Yorkshire, is that, exactly as you've described, but the vast majority of people are there for the genuine reason of trying to prevent this industry from becoming established in this country. Because, like you, they have done their research and come to the conclusion that, this is not something that is appropriate in this country. I mean, it's not appropriate anywhere, as we've just seen in Southern Queensland, but, in a densely populated country like the UK, it doesn't bear thinking about.
Oh, that's right. It doesn't. It doesn't. Because, you see, the one thing that I got really upset about, that with it being organic land, you see, we don't put any sort of chemical on the land at all, no artificial fertilizer. It's all grown naturally or with our own manures from our cattle. That's all we put on as a fertilizer, like a compost. And if any chemical had been put on my land, it would have finished it completely.
Absolutely. And how long has the farm been there? How many generations do you say? 6 generations?
6 generations. We've been here well over 100 years. We've been one of the longest standing farmers in North Shropshire.
And do you sell the produce direct, or do you sell it to outside suppliers?
Outside suppliers, but our milk goes to a company called Arla, and it's organic milk that goes for making specialised cheeses mainly, because we have the other thing I've got, Ian, is a very rare breed of cow called the Brown Swiss. They originate from Switzerland, and they are, well, of course, they're Brown Swiss, they're brown, and they're lovely animals. And of course, coming from Switzerland, they are on the mountains and they're used to just eating vegetation and grass, everything that's grown naturally. So it would have affected those cows as well, because they're very special cows and very rare as well.
Well, it sounds like you've had I won't say a lucky escape, because, I mean, you were very fortunate that you had this limited agreement that gave you the opportunity to get out after 3 years. But do you think iGas have actually given up, or do you think they're going to come back with the open checkbook again?
No, I think they got the message, because I'm a person that's very direct. I tell people what I think, and they knew what I thought the day they came out to see me. I was very, very quick in telling them I didn't want them on my farm again. But the one thing, just going back, when you said about the 25-year agreements, mine was only 3 years. Well, this is what they wanted to offer me as well. They wanted to offer me the open checkbook, but they wanted the land tied up for 25 years.
So, on the basis that, as far as I'm aware, you are, at the moment anyway, the only landowner that's managed to extricate himself from this toxic relationship. So, in the event of other landowners being approached, would you be prepared to offer them the benefit of your counsel? So, I mean, if we were approached, and if we approached any landowners and said, look, there's a guy in Shropshire you need to speak to, would you be happy for us to put them in touch with you?
Ian, any support I can give you or any farmer, I would only be too willing to give my time, because it's very important that they don't go down this route, because what we've just seen in that film before and what could happen, we don't want it.
Absolutely. And you know what, just to make matters worse, is the price of oil, and obviously that impacts on the price of gas, is falling dramatically. And I'm just going to show you this chart here that's up on screen here, because basically today the price of oil has fallen below $44 a barrel. In fact, I think when I last looked at about 5 o'clock, it was actually $44.44 a barrel. Now that is basically at least $30 below the point at which the exploitation of unconventional hydrocarbons is viable. So obviously, these companies right now, they're behind the 8 ball. So the problem as well is exacerbated because they don't have the money. So they're going to be cutting costs. They're going to be cutting corners. And unfortunately, the first places that corners get cut is in things like health and safety and protection of the environment. And, that was a deliberate BP strategy under the direction of Lord John Brown when he was at the chair. But also, well, you see with the price at below $44, it's only $7 above the point of November 2008, where it dropped down to $37. And of course, that effectively was the starting bell for the global financial collapse. And a considerable number of commentators are predicting that the price of oil will fall below $40 very soon, and certainly before year end. And, if we can see this year, basically, unconventional gas exploitation has certainly really not been viable since the turn of the year. And even in the long term, the forecasters are predicting that it's going to remain certainly below $60 a barrel. And when I say for the foreseeable future, I'm talking 8 to 10 years. So it doesn't matter how you look at this, from every angle. You should really be cracking open the champagne, Paul, because you have had a very, very fortunate escape from what literally was becoming a nightmare, and that was without the fracking.
Yes, well, that's right. We're going to have a celebration one night, Ian. And if you're up our way in North Shropshire, we'd love you to come and join us.
I would absolutely love to do that. It would be good to hook up with you. Yes. And just to really show the iGas situation as well, because the iGas stock price went up by about 10% today. But that's because iGas shareholders literally clutch at any straw. Because, of course, a little over a year ago, in fact, about 18 months ago now, not even, it went up to £1.60. And now it's been hovering around the low 20s or mid 20s for quite some time. But, of course, they're hanging their hat on Amber Rudd and her statement that, they want to get the country fracking. But, Paul, it just seems to me that, we've got, and I'll use the term loosely, elected representatives that really now are not even pretending to give any kind of impression that they care what the electorate think or what local councils think. And so in this case, the landowners may well be the last defence of this country in preventing this government from literally turning, this island into a toxic wasteland.
Yes, well, just quickly on that one, Ian, now you just brought that up. The one thing that surprised me at first, that I live next door, my land joins a local MP called Owen Patterson. And he was very friendly with a lot of landowners. And not the last election that we just had, but the one before, he was coming round us, wanting us to vote for him. And then this time, he wouldn't approach us because we wanted to talk to him about this fracking and the situation that's going on. We had several meetings at the local parish halls in the area, and he wouldn't attend one. So he didn't get my vote this time.
Well, and I've made the observation before. The sad reality is that the British government are actually targeting Tory-held constituencies in the belief that the Tory-held constituencies will go through the process up to the point at which basically the council either agree to the application or it's overridden by central government. And then they'll just throw up their hands and say, oh, well, we tried, and the trucks will roll in. I don't think that the British government actually understand or even have any appreciation of the level of education that people are embracing around the country. I mean, when I was in North Yorkshire and a meeting, what it would be now, 10 days ago, there was over 450 people in the room. And it was absolutely staggering to see the level of knowledge and understanding of this industry within the room. And let me tell you that those people in North Yorkshire, you know, will go through due process. But if due process is effectively ridden roughshod over, they will do whatever they have to do peacefully, but they will do whatever they have to do to prevent Third Energy from getting the frack pumps into the well sites.
Yes, yes. But you know what, Ian, I was very surprised to learn that certain, I can't mention any names, I know, but that certain people in the government have got a vested interest as well in it.
Well, sadly, there's an enormous amount of people in the government that have got a vested interest. And in fact, there's a guy, Paul Mobbs, who's done a fantastic job of linking up all those vested interests. And so anybody who really wants to follow that, they can just Google Paul Mobbs and look at his work. Now, we got to check out in just a few minutes. We've got about 3.5 minutes or so. But I just want to let people know that iGas, who of course have designs on being recognised as the largest unconventional gas player in the country, I'm fully expecting to find that they have submitted joint bids with INEOS in Scotland and with Peel Holdings in the northwest of England. But of course, having acquired all the DART licences, they're also looking to establish a presence all the way up the Eastern Pennines. And right now they have an application in to drill in Misson Springs, which is literally on the borders of Nottinghamshire, northern Nottinghamshire and South Yorkshire. And there's still opportunity there to put in your objections. So anybody who lives in the South Yorkshire area or even beyond, please go to the Frack Free Nottinghamshire website. And there you can find details of iGas's application and also some guidelines as to how to submit your objections. And of course, you know, people say, oh, well, can't you give us a template? Can't you write the objection for us? And I always say, no. You write whatever you feel. Do your own research, and then, you know, write what comes from the heart. And get a pen. And most of us have, or many of us, have lost the art of writing. But get a pen and put it to paper, because a handwritten letter carries far more weight than any kind of petition or pro forma letter. So individual handwritten letters carry enormous weight. So it's worth making that extra bit of effort. So now, Paul, in the final minute of the show, I know I can sense a great relief has sort of come over you and your family now that this nightmare is behind you. So, and I really appreciate, by the way, your offer to provide guidance, counsel, information to any other landowners who find themselves in that situation. I mean, as far as I'm aware, you're the first, and I'm pretty sure once you get the word out there, there'll be others joining you.
Yes, well, I've been very pleased. I'm very fortunate that I was able to get out of it, like you said, and it's been a great relief for all of us, not just my family, but the neighbours as well. And I just want to thank my neighbours here tonight, Rob and Sue, for letting me come on your programme.
He's a conservationist, your neighbour.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you'll buy him a pint. And hopefully I'll have the opportunity to meet Rob as well when I come up and meet with you.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Paul, thank you very much. And obviously your family have given you support over this period. And, you know, I know that on behalf of all the people who participated in the Duddleston camp, they thank you. They know that it was a time of great stress for you. And I know that obviously they wanted to do as much as they could to leave that land in its original state.
Thank you very much.
All right, my friend. Thank you. And we'll speak soon.
Bye
Take
now.
care, Paul. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, there you have it. That's the first British landowner, an organic farmer with over 600 acres, over 100 years of family farming experience, who has had the good fortune to get out of the licence before the mother frackers got their bits in the ground. That's the last fracking nightmare for 3 weeks. So by August 31st, I'm fully expecting the first tranche of the 14th round licences to be announced. So watch this space, because the mother frackers are coming to a town or a location near you, unless you join in the campaign to shut down this abomination before it even gets started. Take care. Have a great summer.